Hi, my name is Elizabeth Dancey, and I'm a cyber analyst here at RISE, and I'm here to go over the anatomy of incident response and root cause analysis of the case involving Mr. Oliver and his lost intellectual property. To begin our preliminary investigation, we started with our background. The alleged crime took place involving our client, Mr. Brendan Oliver. Mr. Oliver is a well-known and influential tech mogul with a reputation on the line. And the supposed incident took place on November 10th, 2025 at 7:45 p.m., where Mr. Oliver's personal relations team discovered someone had unlawfully obtained intellectual property from his personal laptop, and this information was being attempted to be sold by a third party to the media. And based on this information given to RISE, we concluded that an investigation into computer forensic activities should be carried out. First, at RISE, we needed to determine if the situation took place by confirming if the lost file is the same one that is supposedly trying to be sold to the third party. RISE also had to look for unauthorized access attempts into the client's device or any recent suspicious glitches or pop-ups. Secondly, the scope of the situation had to be measured to determine the amount of manpower needed to thoroughly investigate in a timely manner. We had to answer some questions like, is there more data at risk? Does the attacker still have access to the data or the device? And is the threat ongoing? If the threat was currently an issue, it would impact the strategy and number of staff that is needed to properly handle the situation. To begin the investigation, the RISE team started by assessing and acquiring the evidence needed for the case. This involved thinking of any possible points of contact that could lead to the leak of the IP. The investigators then obtained the evidence using proper techniques to ensure that no damage or tampering with the evidence took place. Once evidence was acquired, the examination for anything suspicious began. This involved searching for any malicious files, looking into the metadata, or examining any attempts on a device. Along the way, the whole process, detailed documentation and reporting was done to ensure the chain of custody stayed intact. At RISE, having reliable and correct evidence is incredibly important when it comes to pursuing any legal proceedings. And for this specific case, RISE needed to inspect the following avenues for evidence, including Mr. Oliver's laptop, system and security logs, file network artifacts, any indications of malware or intrusion, email accounts of Mr. Oliver, and the recipient that received the intellectual property. And of course, the metadata of the intellectual property and any security footage found around the laptop. We also advise Mr. Oliver to leave his laptop powered on to maintain any volatile data and use clean device if needed. We told him at no point he should attempt to access his email account even if he is on a clean device. To further investigate, we also asked that Mr. Oliver provided answers to the following questions. Was the device left unattended at any point? When was the last time you accessed the IP in question? Have you noticed any unusual log in activity recently? Has there been any unusual behavior like pop-ups or slow loading time? Have you downloaded anything suspicious or from an unknown sender recently? And does anyone else have access to the device? To begin our investigation, we first began interviewing Mr. Oliver and his PR team to gain some insight into the case that we were not already aware of. We asked if any suspicious activity had happened leading up to the event and formatted a timeline of initial creation of the IP all the way to the point of finding out it had been wrongfully accessed. With this timeline information in mind, we classified the event as a possible data breach involving IP. With the possibility of an insider threat due to the IP being sent over an email, we assess the threat may be ongoing and determine that Mr. Oliver's laptop, cell phone, router, and email account may be compromised. The next step of the investigation was to collect all data and evidence that may have been involved with the leakage. We collected Mr. Oliver's laptop, cell phone, and home router and began to document the serial numbers and take photos of the devices. This is done with a chain of custody procedures in mind. RISE Investigations, of course, takes the documentation and reporting of evidence to the highest level of importance to maintain its credibility in the court of law. We then gained consent from the client to access and collect data from email accounts, text messaging apps, and any cloud storage services. With consent granted, we then began collecting login histories, IP access logs, and any messages found on the email accounts or messaging apps. RISE then requested data preservation from the internet service provider and IP logs and connection sessions from the timeline of the suspected breach. These logs are time sensitive and may be overwritten, which made it imperative that we acted quickly. After the acquisition of the data, RISE Investigations took careful steps to ensure that it would be preserved correctly. We first started by making a bit-by-bit copy of the laptop storage, cell phone storage, and router logs. This was done so that any volatile evidence could be viewed at a later date, and investigations of the device could continue without any fear of corruption. To validate the copy's legitimacy to the original device, we computed a SHA 256 hash on the original and the copy to make certain that the hashes matched. Even if one bit was incorrect, the hashes would not equal to each other, proving that our copies are correct. We then ensured that each original device was stored in a secure evidence locker. Each time a device was handled, it was carefully documented and reported. At no point did RISE Investigations perform any forensic testing on the original device, but only the copies of the device. To finish up the preservation process, we exported all email archives and archived all cloud file adaptations, along with access and deletion logs. For the completion of the legal proceedings, we first submitted correct evidence to law enforcement and provided forensic images, internet server provider logs, metadata, and a summary of our findings. We also supplied any logs detailing our forensic methodology, and we provided support for the prosecution. We assisted the investigators with technical interpretations of our logs, and we responded to any legal inquiries, as well as we provided expert statements. We also prepared detailed testimony for the court and documented clear attribution chain linking the unauthorized access to the suspect. And we also carried out proper case closure procedures. We stored evidence according to statutory retention guidelines and delivered a final report to Mr. Oliver summarizing our investigative findings and his needed security improvements. The root cause analysis that we determined is, after analyzing the collected evidence and the data of the investigation, we come to the conclusion that it was a data breach through unauthorized remote access of an email account. An unknown individual somehow gained access to Mr. Oliver's email account and obtained the IP, which was then attempted to be sold to the media. We have concluded that this attack occurred remotely and was not physical entry. This suggests that one of Mr. Oliver's accounts or digital assets may be compromised. And the potential causes of this attack may include the phishing scam that we found in his email, weak or reused passwords, and potentially hijacked session tokens. The remediation strategies that we provided to Mr. Oliver to help further eliminate this happening in the future is reset all passwords and enable multi-factor authentication, as well as using a password manager, disable unneeded cloud synchronization, update any firmware on laptops and routers or any other devices he may have, participate in a phishing scheme training to further learn how to avoid it, and conduct an in-depth digital security analysis on all of his devices every 6 to 12 months.